Hello, my name's Andrew, and today we're talking about the highly controversial question of whether barefoot shoes are a fad. So I've been running, walking, and hiking in barefoot shoes for 7 years now, and I've been posting on YouTube about them for about 3 years. And overwhelmingly, it's been a really positive response. A lot of people have had fun with the transition, they've cured a lot of chronic injuries, but there have been a few comments that I've gotten over the years once in a while where people are like, oh, barefoot shoes are a fad, like it's just a marketing scheme. So I thought it'd be fun to have a video where we kind of talk about the history of like human footwear and just like walking and running in general and kind of solve this issue once and for all. So going back to the dawn of the human species about 200 or 300,000 years ago, we were living in Africa in the savannah, and for the most part we were barefoot. We had, callus to protect us. Our feet were wider, they're more flexible, stronger, so we really didn't need much footwear. And if we did have footwear, it's generally something like this, just a really minimal sandal with a few millimeters of protection, maybe leather, and just some light straps on top to hold them on. That was pretty much it. They were zero drop, just like the human foot is zero drop. It's completely flat. It's never been tilted ever in human history. And we had, wide toe box to fit the wide toes. Pretty straightforward, right? And we might have had something like this, if anything, especially when we started to move to colder climates. You'll see Native American moccasins that look like this. All they are, again, a few millimeters of leather, maybe some wool insulation inside just for a little bit of extra temperature, but again, flat, wide toe box, and super flexible. No support, no stability, no cushion, no anything. But even if you fast forward to the Middle Ages, like people are still wearing the same type of minimalist footwear. And it's kind of interesting because I found this pamphlet from Real Foot, their barefoot company. They make extra wide barefoot shoes. And inside, I found these really interesting pictures. Like, check this out. I don't know whether this is medieval or Renaissance, but look at that. It's a square toe box. It's not pointy like the shoes we have today. It's completely flat and presumably extremely flexible, just a few millimeters of material. And I find this really fascinating. Like, look at this one. Again, squared off, lots of room for the toes to flex, zero drop. Here's some more. So yeah, if you're thinking like shoes have always been pointy, they have never been pointy. They only became pointy, in the last few hundred years. And one of the things that happened, because I was looking at this and I was like, why did it change? Why did we get the heel drop? And one thing that happened with the heel drop in specific is that Persian horse riders, this is one theory, they needed something that held their feet into the saddles, the boot into the saddles a little bit better. So they started adding, this little drop to the heel so they would kind of like catch on the saddle like that. And then in Europe, a lot of the nobility started getting interested in this because it made them a little bit taller. So that's kind of a status symbol thing. And then also, when you're lifted off the ground, like you have to remember a lot of these medieval cities were extremely disgusting. There was just like poop on the streets, and yeah, it was just horrible. So a heel lift kind of like gets you off there, but thankfully we're not living in those conditions anymore. So a heel lift is really not that necessary. And as far as like a pointy toe box goes, this weirdly was also a status symbol because apparently having a pointy toe box was kind of like a sign that you weren't doing much manual labor because you didn't need, wider toes. It was supposed to be like more dainty, I guess. And then to find examples of cushion shoes, you have to fast forward even further to the 1970s when Nike was making just basically track flats. They had almost nothing, it's just a rubber sole, very minimal upper, and that's what athletes are running in. But for most people, running wasn't really like a popular pastime. And so what happened is one of the founders of Nike, Bill Bowerman, went on this trip to Australia, I think it was, and he went on some kind of like running camp. And he wasn't really an athlete. He wasn't really a runner until this point, and he got really interested in it. So he wrote this book called Jogging. And it kind of created this craze, especially in the 70s and 80s in America. And people were suddenly like going out and running, like not training, as athletes, but just as casual exercise. However, the problem was that none of these people had any experience with running, and a lot of them were wearing higher drop shoes. So what happened is that they ended up getting calf injuries and they ended up getting arch injuries. So Nike started looking at this and they're like, how can we solve the problem? And so instead of creating like training plans, to help people, what they did was they started adding drop to shoes. So this is an extreme example of where we ended up. But they realized that if you tilt the shoe forward a little bit, people who are used to heel striking from walking and a higher drop shoe, it helps take some of the strain off of their calves. And of course, this is not a long-term solution because it's just like wearing a crutch, right? So it just kind of becomes a slippery slope where people are getting injured, and then so Nike is adding more cushion and more cushion and more cushion, and then we're gonna add support, and then we're gonna tilt the shoes farther and farther and farther and farther, and I don't know, eventually maybe we'll just Thankfully, we've been having a revival in the past 10 years where companies like Ultra are bringing back the wide toe box, for more room, and zero drop as well. And then you have, of course, barefoot companies like Vibram. They're making super flexible shoes, wide toe boxes, even separate toes. So yeah, that's a brief summary of why if barefoot shoes are a fad, then they are the longest running fad in human history. But what do you guys think? Let me know down in the comments, and thank you for watching. I'll catch you next time. Peace.